Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're tuning in from. I would love if you would tell me whether you're watching live or catching the replay and where you're tuning in from. I am Sam Ruth, and that's Sassy's feet pitter-pattering back there. And I wanted to talk today about some stuff that's happened to me since I did the Relief from Grief workshop a couple weeks ago. And in that workshop, I talk a lot about adding any positives into our lives that might relieve pain, decrease pain. But I also talk about the importance of removing negatives, getting rid of toxic people and things in our lives, and why that's so important. And so many of you who have followed or been a part of the Grief Hab community for a while know that I've shared pretty openly about the fact that I stopped all contact with my in-laws 2 years ago. And I probably should have done it sooner, to be honest. But I was fighting with myself and having that battle, of Jim's family. I have to maintain this connection, the guilt, all the stuff that goes along with it. And so since then, especially since that workshop, I received a lot of feedback from people thanking me for including that piece, including the fact that it's really important to remove negatives and that we have the right and that we have the power and that we get to make those decisions. But that doesn't mean that it's easy. And that doesn't mean that there aren't things that come up throughout life. So right after that workshop, I did the workshop on the 29th. It was supposed to be the 22nd. We had tech difficulties. 29th. So beginning of April, sometime right after that, one of my sister-in-laws called me. And I swear I thought I had blocked all of that because I know, right? Just seeing the name is anxiety provoking for me. It gave me that instant like, oh, do I answer? Do I not answer? I don't want to answer, but do I have to answer? All of that. And I know that you guys who have been reaching out to me look at me and think that I made this decision 2 years ago and that's that. It was a done deal and then there's no difficulty. It's just something that happens and then you move on. And it's not like that. Nothing about healing in Dallas is coming to say hi, but honey, I'm doing something. Thank you. Nothing about healing or recovering from loss is that simple, and it never will be. So I appreciate that you look at me and see hope and see progress. And I promise that that's true. I just don't want you to think that it's not a struggle. I still struggle. And so just seeing the name appear on my phone led instantly to that rabbit hole, that thought spiral that we go down. And I didn't answer. Okay, I didn't answer. I didn't want to answer. And it took strength. It took reminding myself that this is my life, reminding myself that I talk to all of you every day about the fact that we have the power to let go of anything that isn't healthy for us. So I didn't answer. I didn't get a voicemail. If I did, I would have deleted it without listening, because just because they have the same last name does not mean we're family. And the way I was treated would continue. I do not need to put myself in a situation where I know I'm going to hang up the phone or walk out of the room feeling worse. That is a guarantee based on past history and dealing with people who I know don't want to change that. If it was somebody who wanted to change that, it could change. But I'm dealing with people who are who they are, and I accept that. But I don't have to let them in my bubble. I don't have to let them in my world. I worked so hard to create a safe space for me. Other people don't have to understand it or get it, but I just wanted to be honest with you that I still have my struggles. I talk a lot about the fact that I still write Jim letters every day. I still cry. I don't sob uncontrollably. I don't derail. But this potentially could have derailed me. And I want to be honest about that and let you know that even though I'm sitting here doing this video, I still have my moments and I still have my difficulties. And if I would have answered, I would have felt worse. So I just want to point out that you can set a boundary and many will respect it and some might not. And you have to decide how to navigate that. And my decision, I stand by. I can't have these people in my life. And so when something comes up, I immediately did what I would tell you guys to do. I reached out to my team, to my supports, to talk about it and get it off my chest. And immediately the people who know me and know the situation were, you did the right thing. You don't have to call back, even if something's wrong, right? What if somebody in the family's sick? There could be so many things, but it's not healthy for me. So I just want to reiterate that the reason I have the Grief Hab photo as the picture of somebody drowning with their arm reaching out is because to me, grief it's like waves. It comes in waves. There are good days. You're swimming along calmly, and then all of a sudden a huge wave comes out of nowhere, right? There are times where it's rocky for days at a time, and then all of a sudden the calm after the storm comes. So to me, that's a really perfect analogy. And I have to remember who my lifelines are. And I have to remember the people who wanted to push me down and get me to drown. Not literally. I know they didn't want to do that, but that's what it was. It was literally suffocating me. It was literally making me question myself more. It was overwhelming and never good. There was never any compassion for where I was, where I am, what I'm going through. It was all about where I should be, what I should be doing, and how it can be done better. That's not supportive. That's not helpful. Every single one of us in this community questions if we're healing quickly enough and if we're meeting other people's timelines. And it's not about that. We can't heal if we worry about other people and their timelines. So I just wanted to take some time and share this because I come on and I can do a video without crying, and I can have an event and talk about the progress. But that doesn't mean the struggle is gone. It's different. It's not as debilitating as it was the first 2 years. So I just want you to know that boundaries matter and enforcing them is a job. And I had that split second, oh my God, what do I do? And then I went back to my basics, back to my tools, back to my Dallas really wants to be included right now. Nobody's used to this new house and the setup, and it's an adjustment. Honey, I'm working. So lost my train of thought because of Dallas. The other thing that has happened is that a lot of people have been commenting on others' journeys. Goes along with the same thing. And it gets us into that comparing mode. And there are people at the same mark in their healing journeys as I am, and they're remarried. And that blows my mind. And that's okay. That's their journey. It has nothing to do with mine. And so I know we live in this world with social media and everybody posting pictures, and we can see all of these things, but I just want you to remember that we're seeing what they let us see. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today. I want you to see that it's not easy, that there are still difficult days, and I personally believe there always will be, but I have the tools to get through them. I have you, I have this community, and we have each other. You don't have to get through this alone. And while I sat there staring at the phone alone, dealing with it, I could feel myself getting worse. So I let people in so that I didn't stay in that place, and so that I could get the feedback from the people who truly love and support and encourage me unconditionally. And I want you to recognize that this might not have happened to you. Maybe it won't, but if it does, it's okay if it sets you back momentarily. It's okay if it's difficult. Setting a boundary is difficult. It takes work, it takes energy, and enforcing it does also, but I promise you it's worth it, and you'll feel so proud of yourselves and so empowered, and your life will be better. That doesn't mean there aren't days that you have to remember why you set the boundary, and you have to remind yourself not to cave. People are skilled at pushing buttons and getting reactions and getting us to cave based on the fact that we didn't used to act this way. We've created a new boundary, and it's an adjustment for them. And the more you waver and the more you let that boundary bend, the more power you give them and let go of for yourself. This is your journey and yours alone, and no one can tell you the right way. Many people misunderstood or questioned my path because it looked so different from who I had been for 44 years of my life, right? Grief changes you. I became a new version of Sam, and I started doing things that were a little bit less familiar to people, like being okay with the unknown and trusting the process. And the people who love and support me accepted it, even though it was new. And the people who aren't healthy for me questioned it and pushed and tried to break the barrier and the boundary and tried to get me to bend. And I've done that, and I know it gets me nowhere. So I'm hoping that you can learn from that, from my mistakes, and recognize that you set the boundary for a reason, and you're emotional, you're human. When people test it or push that boundary, of course it's going to impact you. Of course it's going to make you think. But you have people to turn to help you remember why you set the boundary. You can even just say, why did I do this in the first place? If it was for you and for your well-being, stand by it. If you're doing it for anybody else, that's different. But I started to feel guilty. I started to feel badly. And this is another topic that I've been talking about regularly with people lately, is guilt. Whether that's guilt for not answering a phone call, guilt for going on a date, guilt for living life without the ones you've lost, right? And I just want to end this by reminding everyone, and this is an exercise I do with myself on a regular basis because I'm a Jewish girl who's easily prone to guilt, right? But guilt, by definition, is feeling badly after you've done something wrong. Done something wrong. Choosing not to answer a phone call is not wrong. It's a choice. It's your right. You can call back later. You can send a message and say, having a day, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Doing something wrong is different. There is right and wrong in this world. There are things that are not blurry and gray, right? I like to say that life is not black and white. There are so many shades of gray. But when it comes to right and wrong, we have a clear understanding. And not answering a phone call is not wrong. I'm not hurting anybody maliciously. My actions and my choices might impact, hurt, disappoint others, but I'm making them for my well-being and for my survival in this life that I have to live without Jim for the rest of my life. So if you are making a decision that doesn't feel right and it's based on guilt, you don't want to offend your family, you don't want to let anybody down, then please remind yourself that guilt is feeling badly when you've done something wrong. And most often, for those of us in a healing journey, we are feeling inappropriate guilt. And if you can separate the two and recognize that this is inappropriate and I can let go of this feeling of guilt, I am allowed not to answer this phone call, all that mental turmoil that we put ourselves through disappears because it's inappropriate guilt. This is guilt that is not meant for me. I have enough. I can feel guilty about plenty of things. I don't need more to add to the list, especially if it's for my well-being, for my long-term health. So tell me if you got any value from this, if there's any questions that you have, where you're watching from, and I look forward to seeing you next week for Picking Up the Pieces. Thanks, everyone.